Okay, well, welcome to Outdoor Quest TV's first Zoomcast, and I'm TJ Schwanke, and as our first guest, who else would we have but my good buddy Richard Mellon. Richard, you and I go back, I don't know, it's got to be getting close to 30 years now.
I could say that you're lying, but my goatee gives me away.
Yeah, yeah. I think, we started doing sportsman shows together. We were doing seminars together. We had some of the most amazing interactive stages ever saw, I think, back then.
We were so far ahead of the curve, we were constantly, I've always said, my wife and we've swam upstream our whole life. We're always out there breaking trail. And that was, I think, what you and I were doing was, we'd been to so many of these other venues and seen what other people are doing. And I watched one of my heroes in the fishing world, because we were both in the fishing side of it for tournaments and all that. Watched one of my heroes one time stand up on an empty box of a stage and wave a fishing rod around and talk. And I thought, my goodness, he's trying to paint all these pictures with words, and he wasn't a super good speaker. I mean, fabulous fisherman, but he wasn't a super good speaker. And I thought, you could have video running behind and all that stuff. It's such a visual world out there. And I think we've incorporated a lot of that stuff into the things that we've done at sportsman shows and places like that.
Yeah, I know. I definitely agree. And then there's so Outdoor Quest TV is actually on its 21st season of broadcast now. We started recording back in 1999, and you and Sandy were involved in that right from day one. And I think the industry's changed a lot. I mean, first of all, there was no Canadian network. We started broadcasting on Outdoor Channel way back then, and we've kind of followed that broadcasting right through. And this has been a challenging industry, hasn't it?
Well, we made a pilot, because back then you had to make a pilot, remember?
Yeah, the quality mattered back then.
Yeah, quality mattered. It wasn't how good the ink was on the check or anything. It was quality mattered, right? And so we had to make a pilot and send it in and get approved and all that in order to be on a channel even. It's so very different world that we live in today, where there are so many more opportunities, so many more channels than that. And in a lot of ways, we have the end product has been degraded a huge amount.
When I think a lot of people don't even understand how this industry works sometimes, but basically to get a hunting or a fishing show on television is just a matter of buying your way on.
Yep.
And here in Canada, if you're a Canadian production and can get a CRTC number, it makes it that much easier. These networks have to broadcast. I think it's 35%. Siri's trying to talk to me right now. At least we
One
keep
of my wife's friends has a terrible story about that, but they have these kids and so they kids go off with the grandparents and that, so they have a adult evening and they have date night and all that. And she said after a few bottles of wine and in the middle of the morning they were having an adult moment, adult entertainment, and Google on her phone beside the bed speaks up and says, "Are you okay?"
I can never get Siri to talk to me when I want her. It's just when I don't. So, but no, getting back to getting a show on, especially on Canadian television. I mean, it is a matter of money. And, unfortunately, when we started, it was a business, and it had to be a business because it was big money back then. We had to have quality. It was a big buy on. Where nowadays, especially on the Canadian productions, it's a lot easier to get on television for a lot less buy on. So I agree, we have seen a degradation in quality somewhat. And I don't know if that's just old guys like us complaining about new ways or what to think about it.
Yeah, I'm the guy that yells at the kids, "Get off my lawn!" Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's a couple things though. Even before you talk about that, is how much the entertainment world has changed, like TV itself. At that time back then, when 20 years ago, TV was everything. And now, we went through a stage where people believed that internet was everything, and that there was no longer going to be a reason for TV. But the last few years, TV has fought back valiantly and still has great numbers. It's with the older people or people as they age that the numbers pick up, but it's still in the 80% of people. That's where they get their entertainment is on TV and not on the internet. So I think we've seen the highs and the lows, and I think we're coming back into it again. And I think it's mostly because TV is the only thing that's organized. Everything else can exist on the internet, but nobody knows where it is, right?
Well, it is, and there's just so much of it there. And I mean, I guess even though the quality is degraded possibly on TV a bit, it still is vetted to some degree. I mean, it still has to be a professional production and everything else. So, I mean, it's not like YouTube or somewhere like that where you can just throw anything on there. And, at some point, your good quality content does tend to get lost online at some point because there's just too much content there.
Well, that's really important point is that, one of the things that I've learned, because we have all of these different venues, and people consume your product how and when and where they want to. So some people are going to be happy to be sitting there at, Sunday at 8 o'clock at night and watching Outdoor Quest. That's their time to watch Outdoor Quest. Other people want it to, on their phone, on YouTube as they're driving down the road, or you're never going to drive people to the same spot over and over again. Everybody has that place where they want to be. And it's the weirdest thing, because you can post that same thing in so many different places, and everybody has a way of consuming it. So that's one of the things that the Choices has done, is that it has had to make it much more versatile. Like, we have to know about the social media, not just the TV side of it, but the social media and that, because like you say, there's a lot of very marginally produced shows that are very, very popular because they're out there and they have found that audience that wants to watch that kind of thing, or them at that point, right?
Well, I think the worst thing you can do is throw a post up on Facebook and go, "What do you like in a TV show?" Because you're going to get, you're going to get 50 opinions on it, and they're 50 valid opinions. And if you try to be every one of those opinions, you're not. You have to find your niche. And you and Sandy are doing Trapping Inc. now. Like, you guys love to trap. You've got a real following there, and not everyone's going to like it. We love to travel with our hunting. We like to go international. Not everyone's going to like that, but we do have our good followings, and you're 100% right on that. And I think we use the TV. I was shocked. I heard a number the other day that 95% of the people that watch our show watch it live. They're not PVR'd. So that says a lot to me. These aren't people that want to go to the internet. And so, I think one of the things we both do well, is we are multi platform. So we are on the internet, we are doing a lot of other things. So we're appealing to a lot of audiences, but I think we are staying true to our content.
Well, and that is really important. I mean, over the time, we morph into what we are. And I think for me, it's just been a journey back to who I am. There was, when we were competing, especially in the United States, we were competing on, to be on the Outdoor Channel, which was the pinnacle. That was as high as you could get in the outdoor world, was to be on Outdoor Channel. You had to meet not only all their quality standards and all that kind of stuff, but then there were certain things that were popular. And if you were going to compete in that sponsor world, you had to do the same thing. So the black screen and talking head and all that kind of stuff. You have a bigger history in TV production than I do. And that used to make you so mad. I can remember, and this is 20 years ago now, but I can remember you being so mad about them when they cut back to the studio and the talking head on the black background to be going, and you say, "Well, he didn't get the shot, so that's why they're doing it." That's sloppy. That's poor work, and it was popular. So you'd morph into that. We morphed. One year we had, I want to say we did 24 or 28 shows, and there was like 40 kills in that year, because that was the year that everybody was just whack 'em and stack 'em, and nobody wanted to know what you're using or how you got there, and they just wanted to watch stuff die. And you go along with it because you need to find your own format, and you need to once again, at the business side of it. How big was our first buy? Do you remember?
I don't, but I'll guarantee it was probably 5 times what we're paying now. It was a lot of money back then.
It seemed to me it was like $120,000 US or something like that.
Yeah, it was crazy. And I mean, that was one thing back then too. You had to have a business plan. And one thing I'll say about both of us through our business lives, like, we've always made money through a business, and it may not have been a lot.
Well, I can remember that very first year because we went and hit a bunch of shows and that kind of stuff, and we signed sponsors and all that thing. I think by the time it was done, we paid cameramen and we paid editing and all that. I think you got $17 and I got $17. That was the profit for the year, right?
Yeah. But I mean, that was big, right? Like it was, there's so much vanity television nowadays where people are just willing to lose a lot of money to be on TV. And that was never our intent. Like we went into this to produce quality programming and to make money. At the end of the day, it still is a job. And if you don't treat it like a job, I think that reflects badly on your product.
It is funny because you have so many people walk up to you and say, "Ah, you're living my dream. I wish I had your job. And I always say to them, no, if it was your dream, you'd be doing it, because that's all it takes is just do it. You
Absolutely.
know, but then they ask you about, well, how do you get sponsors? And basically they would take the PIN number to your account if you'd give it to them.
Yeah.
But I give them the best advice that I can. And I can guarantee you that 99 out of 100 walk away and they turn to their girlfriend or their wife or whatever, say, he lied. That ain't the way it is.
Yeah.
I got buddies who know, right?
Yeah. Or I know better. Yeah.
I've never lied to anybody about the reality of that. And it's the hardest job you ever do. You're selling yourself.
And I think that is the real part of it. Like everyone wants the easy way there. So like if somebody walked up to you today and said, I want to start a hunting or a trapping television show, what would be your advice?
Well, you need to have a business plan. You need to, you need to know what you're going to produce, because what it comes down to is you're asking them to spend money on you to help them sell their product. So you need to know, what kind of numbers you can turn from, what you can do from that kind of stuff is extremely important. And sponsors are where it's at, or some source of income. It can't be just out of your pocket all the time. You have to, you have to pay production, post-production. You have to pay your broadcast buys. There's a lot of money goes out. There's travel. There's probably not, hunting and trapping, the outdoor shows. There's probably nothing worse when it comes to the amount of traveling that's involved. The costs that's involved that a lot of other shows don't have, right?
Yeah, and I agree. And I think, a lot of people, they'll come into their first season and they'll have shot for 3 or 4 years. And, they have 3 or 4 years worth of great footage. And their
Yep.
first season actually looks pretty good.
Yep.
Then the reality hits in season 2. I need to make 13 episodes in, a few short months. And if you're trying to do that, in your short trapping season or our short hunting season here in Alberta, man, you got to be hustling. You got to be making things happen.
Oh, no question. That's the secondary thing that I talk about is where are you getting all your footage from, right? I mean, the business to me is always the first thing, because I mean, if you can't pay for it, you're stupid.
Exactly.
I can't be any more polite than that.
No,
I just can't.
And you shouldn't be.
Because for one thing, I mean, to be brutally honest about it, they're competing against me. Even if they're going there for a handful of stickers, 2 hats, and a t-shirt, right? They're competing against me. And there comes a point where that handful of stuff that they got might be, 1,000th of what I got paid by that company. But if they get 1,000 people that do the same thing for the, the stickers and the hats, that nobody's ever going to get paid again. So I want them to, listen, right up front, we need more really good hunting, trapping shows. We need it. We need to keep spreading that word. We need that industry to be strong. So don't think that I'm trying to cut anybody out. I'm not. But don't go into it stupid. Don't go in there and screw up the whole business, because I mean, we've been struggling so hard to make it a business. And, it's never, for a lot of people, it's never been a business in Canada.
Oh, and I think you're right. There's probably, you could count on one hand the amount of shows that it has been a business for, and they've been really successful. But I mean, if you do look, I mean, there are a lot of shows now that are into double-digit years of broadcast, 10, 12, 15 years. And those are the people that did go into it as a business. And the ones that didn't, they're the 1 or 2 year wonders. And I don't know, but you're right. There's a never ending line of those, and they all have a better idea. They can all do it better. They're all willing to work for free because, if they can show what a great job they can do for free, somebody's going to pay them a lot of money. And you have the classic line for that.
Oh yeah. Which one's that?
Basically, the price you set today is the price you set for life. So if you're willing to work for, if you're willing to work for free today, that's all you're ever going to be worth to that person.
Yeah, I had another classic line. You hadn't told me whether you swear on your podcast yet or not. No, that first price is your best price.
Yeah.
I mean, you can bump it up a nickel or 10% or whatever a year, and that. But I mean, if it's nothing, 10% of nothing is still nothing.
Well, and if you tell someone you're willing to work for free, you're basically telling them your product is worthless.
Well, you're basically telling them that you think your product is worthless.
Exactly. And
That's the big thing that
yeah,
people just don't get.
yeah. And I've walked away from a lot of potential deals because I thought I had good value. They didn't, and we just couldn't come to an agreement. But I wasn't willing to compromise my value for what they considered. And some of those deals have come back around.
Yep.
I think ultimately they end up respecting you, and it may be 2, 3, or 10 years down the road, but they still have that respect for you that you were willing to walk away from what you thought your value wasn't.
I had that kind of situation happen just last month, and they produce a video trail cam, and it works off of cell phone. And I looked at the deal, and I mean, like 5 free trail cams, and big deal, right? And so I've respectfully declined several times now, and now I'm up to like a room full of them. And I says, look, give me 3 and pay me some money.
Yeah.
Well, we're not there yet, but we might get there. Who knows?
Yeah.
But it was just the fact that free trail cams were that for me.
Yeah. And I think, we've said no to some pretty big people over the years, not mentioning any names. But and I think it came as a surprise to them. And I remember one, and I won't mention a name for sure, but they were like, but we're, such and such a company, right? And we're like, well, we're who we are, and we need to get paid. And, they've got a lineup of people working for free for them. And that's fine if that's their business plan, but it doesn't fit into my business plan. And
well, there was actually 2 issues that were going on there. One was loyalty, and the company that had filled that niche in our marketing was a small company, but we'd been with them for several years, and they were treating us well. We were treating them well. And this other company, didn't matter to them that we would be disloyal to the first, as long as we'd be loyal to them. Right.
Well, and that says a lot too. I mean, it's and that's the other thing. I want to talk about sponsors a little bit, because I think there's a myth, I think, in television, and there's probably some truth to it, but you'll sell your soul to have a sponsor in it. And I think both of us have been in this, well, I know both of us have been in this industry long enough that it's not the case. And I know when we take a sponsor on, it's because we've used their product for 2 or 3 years without getting paid. We probably bought their product and like it, and it works. And I'm long past the stage of needing a check that badly that I'll promote a product that I don't believe in.
Well, part of it is too, I mean, there's a lot of work involved in this. People have no idea the amount of work. And I do not have the time of day to make up for anything. I can't shoot around something. I've had clothing sponsors come to me, and they make wonderful clothes if I was hunting whitetail deer in Georgia.
Yeah.
But they don't work for what I'm doing, but we just want to be associated with the show. Well, that's fine, but I can't use it. Well, you could do some setups and that. No, I don't have time for that. I truly don't. And you yourself know, I mean, how many times do you absolutely have a digital glitch or whatever, and you need to fill some little tiny thing to try and find something that fits there from this vast library that you've got? The sun is wrong, the clouds are wrong, it's snowing, it's raining, it's not, that kind of stuff. So I already know that kind of situation is never going to work for me. And I told them no. And they were just, I think they were angry by it. There was, do you know who we are?
Mm-hmm.
But I can't make up for it. I've got no time for junk. When I use something on the show, and this is something that both you and I have loyal followers with, they believe us because they see us use it. Half the time they see me break it, even when it's good stuff, right?
Well, and that's exactly right. And, and we're not the type to sit with a dead animal or something and talk about every one of our sponsors that, made all this possible. I mean, if you don't know at that point, watching our show, what made it possible, me telling you isn't going to sell you on it. Like, I like to use something really hard and show that it works, and that can speak for itself.
If you can watch my show and not figure out who all my sponsors are without looking at the billboards and commercials, then I've done it wrong.
Yeah,
my stuff gets used.
Yeah, but also you don't need to constantly try and sell it to the viewers all the time. I'm using an Argo, I'm using an Argo, I'm using an Argo, because people see you're using an Argo and it works, right? Like, you don't need those gratuitous plugs in there. And I think me as a viewer, I do watch a lot of outdoor television, and those are the things that irritate me the most. I couldn't have shot this deer without my Browning rifle and my, whatever scope it was. And I'm like, yeah, you could have,
Yeah.
you know, but like show me why. Don't tell me.
Instagram gets me, and there will be literally one word: big buck. Big buck down or deer or whatever. Deer. I saw one the other day. It was deer, and then there was about like this worth of hashtag doing it old school, hashtag, and all the products and everything. It was like, I can't even be bothered. Like, I'm not sure where they think that is actually promoting anything. Is that the person themselves, or do you get that feedback from companies that they want to see that hashtag there, and when
Well, I
there's
think a lot of
other
these
people.
so-called brand ambassadors nowadays, I mean, that's part of their contract is they have to hashtag so many products a month and things like that. So I guess they are fulfilling that part of a contract. I agree. I think the value is pretty limited. I still think it's hard to beat showing a product being used under pretty extreme conditions that we both operate under. And you don't need to talk about it a lot, just show using it
Yeah.
and using it because you believe in it and using it because it's probably one of the only products that'll stand up to that kind of use.
Yeah, I mean, there's always this situation where I've got products that I represent that if they quit, sponsor me, I'm jammed because I'm gonna still, and I'll use their product, just won't show it,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Well, and I mean, I've got one sponsor right now that we both had for a long time that pays pretty poorly, and I've had a lot of way better offers, and I can't. Like, it's too good of a product.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm not going to compromise that just to put some extra money in the bank account. Although my banker would probably be happy about that, but
Well, it comes down to, though, I mean, one of the most important things that you put into a show is pride. And if you're not proud of what you're doing, or you're not proud of who you're representing, and that shows. You got to be out there enjoying life. You got to be happy and confident with what you're doing. And if you're not proud of that stuff, you're not going to produce a good show. And that's in the end, that's the product that suffers the most.
well, and you're right. And I think both of us kind of operate under conditions. I mean, our shows are both pretty guerrilla style. It's shooting. It's over the shoulder. It's rough. There's no tripods hardly. It's real life. And
Yep.
like you said earlier, you can't take time out of real life to bring something in that doesn't work. Like, it
No.
has to work while you're doing it. And there's lots of shows at the end of it, I'm like, oh man, I forgot to mention what I was using or talking about. But and then you get 10 emails after that show talking about the products you were using that you never
Yep.
mentioned.
Oh yeah.
So, and to me, that is the ultimate compliment, because I don't want to be that guy with the gratuitous, every time I shoot something and all that. We don't need that. Like, I'm happy to talk about what I'm using when it's germane to the show, but just gratuitously, not a chance.
No, I totally agree with you on that. It is one of the downfalls. So because the people get into this, and they're either doing it because they're trying to get picked up the next year, or to increase the sponsorship or whatever, because all of a sudden they realize this stuff gets expensive. But one of the biggest issues you're talking about camera work and that is to find somebody to actually run a camera for you.
Well, and
You
we've
know,
been pretty blessed that way.
yeah. I mean, our partners do it.
Yeah.
Like our partners. Sandy, God bless her, but we're trying to move bigger and better and further beyond, and to try and find a cameraman. When it's it's middle of May right now. It's pretty easy to find a cameraman now, unless it's been like the last 2 days where it's raining 2 inches an hour. But in the wintertime, when it's down into the conditions, or like you're at the top of a mountain chasing sheep, and it's pretty hard to find a cameraman.
It is, yeah. No, it is, and I mean, and that's the other thing about this whole thing. I mean, I think for us, the smaller we can keep our crews, the more intimate those crews can be. Like when Vanessa and I are doing a stock on an animal, we probably never talk, and it's
No.
just because I'm focused on the hunting, or she's focused on the hunting, and who's ever running the camera is totally focused on that. And neither one of us really needs to say anything. I mean, you might get "Are you on them?" and that'll be the
Yep.
whole extent of our conversation during a stock.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, that's hard to to classify how important that is, that kind of that level of communication and all. But another thing that's hard to classify is how much everybody wants to see both of you at once. They
It
want to
is.
see that. They want to see that banter in that. As we've done more things like podcasts, and we've done a lot more where both of us are on the camera, and that's the stuff that people want to see. They want to identify with you guys as partners. You know what I mean?
Oh, 100%. And yeah, and remember, one of my biggest pet peeves when we first started this was the cameraman talking.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and, and it was wrong back then.
I have told everybody this story a million times. This is what TJ was old school, and cameramen don't talk. We know
Cameraman didn't
the
exist.
cameraman. Yeah, nobody ever talks. And to me, that was wrong because I was always talking to the cameraman, right? And we've laughed about it many times. Yeah.
Well, but now it's become, the cameraman's become an integral part of the show, because you're right. It is, especially with us, you and Sandy and Vanessa and I, we are partners already in life. So why wouldn't you be talking back and forth, even though they're behind the camera?
Yeah, it's a silly kind of thing that that anybody would actually believe that you weren't talking to or communicating with them. That you're just talking to that lens. But you remember though, back when we started, I mean, all the setup shots and that were done, all of a sudden this guy'd be staring at a deer and he'd be looking through his scope or whatever, or his binoculars, and then you'd see the shot of the deer, and then the next thing you'd be outside the blind looking in at him
Yeah.
as he's looking at the deer and all that, and then you go for a stalk and he'd stalk towards you and be, it's like, this is all made up stuff, people. This isn't why.
Yeah, like the cameraman wasn't outside the blind when you shot the deer. Like, and
when we do a stalk on an animal, Sandy sneaking up on her zebra or hemsbach or whatever, and all you see is her boots and her rear end. It's not because that's just my favorite view. It's because that's where I'm at. I'm not in front of that.
Absolutely. But I think that's what's kept our shows relevant. And, I watch a lot of shows on television. I go, oh my God, that videography is so pretty. And, they've taken probably 2 days just to shoot the cutaways for a show, never mind the actual hunt. But in some ways, it kind of takes you out of the hunt. And I think the way we do it, and the same when you're trapping, like the camera is the viewer. Like, that's what we treat the camera as, is the viewer. Yeah. And whatever perspective that viewer would have if they were actually in that blind with you or in your argument with you, is where the camera should be.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think some of those shows, like you talked about, that have the the fabulous cutaways and all that kind of stuff, a lot of that ends up being filler. Okay. And so really it kind of takes away from the actual the hunt, the show, the trapping, whatever, because it's filler. I have days worth of running machines and GoPros and all that kind of stuff. But most of the time it never goes into a show because, you have one setup and one segment, and that'll go from commercial to commercial or whatever. By the time you're done with your editing and your adding and stuff, to throw in some traveling or a sunset or all that, that's all just filler, So is it more important to put that filler in or actually show the story that you wanted to show?
Exactly. And I mean, our philosophy, I think right since day one, is just, that camera is the viewer and they're coming right along on that adventure with us. And that's what we want to portray. And, I keep looking at all these other shows, man, we should be doing this better. We should be doing this better. And then, Vanessa will say, we've been around 21 years. We're the longest running hunting show in Canada. Maybe we're doing something right. Yeah. Damn women and their logic, right?
I know. They're always so sensible.
Yeah, I know. So we talked a lot about TV. There's no way you can make it just as a television production anymore. There's just not enough money in Canada, especially. We're doing lots of other things, lots of social media, these kind of Zoomcasts, podcasts, producing content. Maybe it's just a little bit of a rundown on some of the stuff you're doing that makes money.
You and I had a business together, and we produced that feature you talked about, right? And then it was started as a pool and a stage, and we kept adding stuff to it, and then pretty soon we were producing a feature, another hunting stage, and a feature of kids fishing pool and all that. It all made money, but to separate it all out and say this makes this much money, that much, we discovered was just about an impossible job.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I'm going with all this, is that everything all together adds up. For me, probably my least most important stuff is Instagram and Twitter. I don't know whether it's being 60 years old or what, but I really don't get them. Or perhaps my product isn't pertinent to it.
And I'd agree with that 100%. I mean, we're on both those platforms and try to use them more, but I rarely, I never have a sponsor say, oh, somebody saw your post on Twitter and bought this. I get that a lot from Facebook.
Yeah. Well, I do have two sponsors that are really happy about every time I'm on Instagram, because then they'll take and include me in their story. Which, do you know what a story is? I'm not sure.
I know, yeah, it's I don't know.
I get notified that I'm included in their story, but I just never, it's one of those things that I've wrote down about 900 times that I should take the time to learn. And so far, all I've done is wrote it down 900 times. It's probably the least most important, but we do a lot of other stuff. I think the biggest thing is to find a market or a place to market your digital product, because when you're done with TV broadcast, you can turn that into a lot more hits, a lot more sales, and that for your people, for your sponsors, which is really important. It's always important. And you can turn it into it can also become a tool that you use to increase your number of people on Facebook. Like you said, we have 2 Facebook pages, you as well, plus our personal stuff. Those are a big thing. I'm not sure if they're going to continue on. I mean, things are getting a little more tricky out there, as far as people reporting what you're saying, and it's really hard to try and market something like what you and I do on Facebook.
It is and it isn't. I mean, I've sat in on several Facebook seminars and how to do Facebook well, and they always say pictures, few words, things like that. And some of our best posts are ones that are 1,000 words long. Like, people will read those, they resonate with them, and this is probably just our audience. Like, I mean, no doubt we have an older demographic as an audience, and that's fine. I mean, in a lot of ways, that's where the disposable income is too.
No, and I agree with you on that. The only thing is how do you make that trackable? Like, I mean, how do you turn that around and say to your sponsor that this is, because this is where it comes down to. I mean, where it all comes down to is that they are our boss, and we need to show how many widgets we built this year. There's a word from 20 years ago, huh?
It is maybe 40.
And so, I mean, I can take and show my insights on my Facebook page and all that kind of stuff, and I can compare it to anybody else, and you're crushing it. But if you have a product that you're trying to sell, can you prove that you were selling that product? So, I mean, you need to have more than just Facebook, and you need to have more than internet, or more than Twitter and Instagram. Things like YouTube are big. Other places, Amazon Prime, another great place. 75 million emails are signed up for, or 80 million now, I guess it is, Amazon Prime. You get this giant digital footprint that all of a sudden, when you look at it, it's impressive. When you sit there and look at it, our podcast, hits in the top 5 often in Canada, and we'll get into in the top 50 in the United States. And people say, until you realize that Spotify just announced a deal yesterday with Joe Rogan. They have over 1 million podcasts on Spotify alone. Yeah, and they're the little player yet.
And that deal was worth somewhere between 100 million and who knows,
100 and 200. Yeah, I've heard both. I've heard both ways. I know that signing Rogan, their stock went up. Their cap index hit. They went up $5.5 billion in less than, or just over 24 hours.
Yeah, and you and I'd work for a tenth of that.
We've worked for a lot less than a tenth of that.
But I think you're hitting on a good point here. Is like, you do produce a big, well-rounded package, but to break any one piece of it out and value it is almost impossible. And I think we've been lucky enough over the years to work with companies that can track, kind of what's happening, and we've kind of been the only people they're working with at some point. So, if their sales go up 20% the first year after they sign on with you, a good chunk of that is attributed to you. And whether that was through television or Facebook or your podcast is kind of irrelevant. It's the whole package you're selling them is working.
Absolutely. And as you're talking, I went back to mentally, that was where the vacant eyes came from. I mentally went back to when Facebook and that kind of stuff started. And I'm not sure. Everybody must know by now that you can buy likes for your Facebook page. Okay. And when a couple of years back now, 3 would be the peak or 4 would be the peak of it. years ago, all of a sudden, everybody in the outdoor world, anyway, was no longer going to be on TV. They were going to just be on the internet, and all these people were going to have these Facebook pages, that had millions of people on them and all that. Well, they were bought.
Yeah.
So then the term organic and non-organic came about, which meant that if it was organic, it was your own growth, and then people actually come and found you and liked your page. But there was a lot of people who got pretty lucrative deals based on how many likes their Facebook page had, when none of them were actually real. And so things like the insight, page will show you, there's some people that have, 600,000.
Explain that page, because I don't think most people know about it.
Well, you have to have a business page.
Yep.
Okay. And if you have a business page, you can go to this one page, and you can compare every week. You can compare to how many likes you've got, how many reactions you've got, and what your reach is, and all that kind of stuff. And you can compare to anybody out there. I have put my stuff up against Jim Shockey. I've put it up against Pat and Nicole at Driven and all that kind of stuff. And they all have hundreds of thousands of followers compared to my 12 or 13,000. And I will oftentimes reach far more than they do. It's just a matter of how that's going on. Those are really great numbers to hold on to, and to show, because people don't understand, that we've always, as humans, it's always that quantity thing first, right? Whether it's how big the bikini top is or how many cubic inches the Ford has, size matters, right? But quality matters. Quality matters. And when you are sitting there with 247,000 likes on your Facebook page, and you've got a 0.01% of a interaction or increase for that week, it's not doing much, is it?
Well, no, and those insight pages, I find them, and we actually print those out and send them to our sponsors probably once a month or so. And like you say, we compare to the best shows, and sometimes we're behind by a little bit, but typically we're ahead. And it was kind of funny, you talk about buying likes. I just looked at our insights this morning, and I have one page on there, and I think he's got about 40,000 followers, and we have 12 or something. He had a reach of 6. Yeah. Not 6,000, 6 people this week, and ours was up around 17 or 18,000.
Yeah.
So that most of those likes aren't real. So it's been a real education process too. I think for us as old guys, we've done pretty good at keeping up with technology. And every time a new marketing guy starts at a company that I work with, it's like re-educating them again. And this guy's come out of some marketing school. He's 30 or 20 something years old. And he goes, well, you don't have many likes on your Facebook page. I'm like, let me show you our reach compared to, and then most of them, it's like the first time they've ever seen that insight. And
it's even worse if it's a 50-year-old marketing guy, because they have no clue at all.
I'd rather take that, because at least I can educate them. It's the ones that think they know everything.
They just know that their boss is breathing down their neck for getting more internet action going on, right?
Yeah.
I know what you're saying, and it's frustrating. And for me, I've always, there's always that ROI, right? Return on investment. And for me, it's always been, okay, the internet. And I remember one time in my storied career, I sold Ford trucks. And we had this whole chart. If they came in the door, if they actually walked off the parking lot and in the door, now our chance of selling, had gone up to 10%. And if they actually went over and talked to somebody, then it went up to 11%. If they asked about colors, jumped to 15%. If you could get them out on a test drive, now we're hitting 20 or 30% chance of selling that vehicle to that person. And so I kind of looked at the internet that way. And I'm looking at these people, they got 1 million or 100,000, several 100,000 likes and all that. And I look at how much action is going on there. What's happening, right? And it's like, I don't see that being a big sales tool,
Yeah.
I'm always looking for, and people think that, just go with the flow, Rich, don't worry about it. But I always, if I can figure out why something works or how something works, I can use it.
Exactly. And I think we've always been that. We've got to take things apart.
Yeah. I remember the 650 Holly double pumper carburetor.
I think it's still the mini bike from when I was 6 that's in pieces.
But if you can figure out how it ticks and what's important in there, it was like when I discovered the insights page on Facebook, because I'm wandering around and you're doing so much to try and get likes, right? You're doing giveaways and all this kind of stuff. Based on those likes are costing you, maybe 10 cents, 15 cents each.
Oh, easily.
And that's by doing a giveaway, deal with one of your sponsors, and you give away a pair of binoculars or whatever, and you think that, my goodness, it's just going to explode. We're not going to be able to control this, but it doesn't.
No, no.
It doesn't.
And are those the likes you really want?
Well, that's just it. So that's where I started, just wandering around trying to figure out what's going on. And there isn't a lot of support out there. And I think that, Google and Facebook and all them are purposely vague because they don't want you to understand too dang much.
Yeah.
They want you to be, figure that you should be buying their ads or that kind of stuff, right? And they don't really want you to know what the value of those ads are that they're running in your stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly. And social media at the end of the day is kind of worthless because you don't own it.
Nope.
Facebook could say to you tomorrow, Rich, we don't like your trapping page anymore. Or it doesn't fit with Facebook. We're going to delete it.
Yep.
So you've spent, how many tens of thousands of dollars building up your followers, and they take it away from you with no compensation. It's worse than the Canadian gun grab.
Let's not get started on that one.
Yeah, exactly.
My blood pressure just finally came out of the clouds. Well, it's funny. We're kind of running into that issue right now. When if your channel on YouTube is monetized, I can't take my grandkids trapping and put that in a video on my YouTube. That's exploitation of children. Yeah. And they're my grandkids, for God's sake.
Yeah.
It's hard enough. You ever have those conversations with California where, they're asking about what you're doing and you're trying to explain, this is our life. Mm-hmm. This is what we do. Perhaps, hunting is a little bit more mainstream than trapping, but we've had those conversations and, trying to explain that this is just life. And, they walk away thinking that I pulled the wool over their eyes or something. And it's not true. My grandchildren, I mean, not being able to show them on a video, that's not right. That's not right. This is our life.
It isn't right, but again, we're working with somebody else's platform, and you have no say. And I kind of find it funny when people get outraged on Facebook that Facebook deleted something. It's my right to post that. Well, no, it really isn't your right. You're using a private platform at their discretion. And if you read the fine print, it's all there.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And that was why I was so excited about what Joe Rogan did. Mm-hmm. And the fact that he signed with Spotify for all this big money and that he's going to be leaving YouTube completely. He said that the biggest problem that he had going on was he wanted to put up podcasts like with the two doctors from California talking about the pandemic and what needed to be done, and that you needed to basically, like you had exercise your muscles, you have to exercise your immune system, right?
Right.
I don't like the way I've been exercising my jaws recently.
Abdominal muscles.
Yeah, exactly. But he wanted to put that up, and YouTube said, no, that doesn't fit in our policy because we somebody might complain that that's false news or whatever. Even though CNN has Greta Thunberg, a high school dropout that's going to be talking about the pandemic on CNN. So, those are the issues that are happening. And with him stepping away and actually making Spotify big is what he's done. He's taken Spotify from another also ran, and I don't know how many companies do what Spotify does, but there's a dozen or whatever. Because some of them my podcast will distribute to them automatically through the iTunes store. Others I have to set up individually. There's dozen or 20 that I've set up individually. But what he's done is he's suddenly created competition for YouTube, which is the largest video. There's nobody else even comes close until this. And so what's going to happen? I'm happy to see that there's competition. I'm happy that YouTube is actually going to have to be responsible because they have allowed their policies and their left viewpoints and that kind of stuff run amok. And it's not just, for religion or for politics and that, but it's life like what we do. That's not going to be acceptable soon. They outlawed trapping in California. They got a book. They've got a law in the books for outlawing taxidermy in California.
Yeah, well, and they're trying to outlaw the import of African animals, and there's all kinds of goofy stuff. But just going back quickly to your comments about competition being good, I mean, we're on competing networks here in Canada right now. Like you're on
Yeah.
Wild TV, I'm on Sportsman Canada,
Yep.
and God bless, I hope Wild TV does so good, and I'm sure you hope Sportsman's does really well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I mean, I know there's a lot of competition between the two networks as networks, but I think as producers, like, we really see the value of having those two platforms because I moved from one to the other, and
Well,
that was only because of competition, right?
well, absolutely. And because you want to do what's best for your show and what's best for your sponsors, that kind of stuff. But you want to see the competition because the more successful it is, the more it becomes more mainstream.
Yep.
In a lot of ways, even though there are so many more hunting shows on fishing shows on TV, hunting and fishing was far more mainstream when you and I were 20 than it is today.
Oh yeah.
It's not mainstream whatsoever, and that's the whole loss. So we need all the channels we can get. We need all the shows we can get.
And I totally agree. And I mean, neither one of us has ever been afraid of competition. I mean, if
No,
our product doesn't stand above the others, we're doing something wrong.
no, that's right. I can remember, when you and I were partners in Outdoor Quest, and we'd be having sponsorship meetings with sponsors, and the sponsors, one guy made the comment. He says, "You guys just talked about, why you were better. You never talked about, what do you think about this guy and what he's doing?" And I says, that makes no difference to me.
Nope.
If you can't make that decision on your own and decide that we're better, all I talk about is better. Running somebody else down doesn't make me look better.
No, it sure doesn't. And that, a lot of people need to learn that lesson. So before we end our time here, where do you see the future of all this?
That changed. That is a moving target without a question.
Especially in the last 3 months, it's changed.
Yeah, I just got my my Nielsen numbers for April. Ooh.
Yeah, exactly.
I wish I could throw that out all the time, but I don't know if anybody is buying. That's I have. The frustrating part about all of this is that we try and make decisions and we don't always get all the information, right? I have sponsors and you have sponsors that, sometimes you're dealing with the owner, and you can talk to him and you can see what's working, what's not working, and that's important. You know how things are going. Some are you're dealing with an advertising company or for them, or a marketing company, and you don't really know what's going on, and they kind of feel it's in their best interest not to let you know if you're doing really good, because you might want more money in the partnership or whatever. So it's frustrating, when we get these huge numbers, and some of the people that I can talk with, I can phone them up and say, "Hey, how's it going?" And, oh, crazy. We're selling like crazy. Well, that's good. So what are you selling off of? Is it the TV? And here's the cool part, is it goes back and forth. Because with the guys that I do have, the couple companies that I have that I can deal with them, they track where it comes from, and sometimes it's a TV show, and other times it's off of your digital stuff. And
Yeah.
so where's it going to go? 3 years ago, I'd have said that TV probably had a lifespan expectancy of 3 or 4 years. Now I think TV's expectancy is long ways out there yet. I think that we've got a lot of it. Long time, and I think that's mostly because the internet isn't organized. Even though we complain about what time Outdoor Quest comes on TV, oh, it's on Sunday and I don't want to watch it on Sunday, or whatever. It is a structure, and we learn to live within that structure. And the thing about YouTube, you can go on there and you can get lost for days, and then 2 days later, remember what you went there to look for, and that you never found it. There is no structure. And if you don't have something in mind when you go on the internet, it's worthless. I mean, I could stand at the end of my driveway giving away $100 bills. If nobody knows I'm there, I'm not going to give away very many, am I?
Yeah, exactly. I'd be there, but.
Yeah. I got to ask you a question, though.
Okay.
Do you got pants on?
That's one question I never answer, but it is Friday, so yeah.
Do you remember? This is a long time ago.
Yep, I do.
We were doing a morning show at a large TV channel in Alberta, and we go down there, meet with all the morning people and all that. And you kind of walked around behind and looked, and you turned to me and said, they got pants on. And before I could smile or anything, the anchor man tore a strip off you a mile wide, and I had to turn my face the other way because I was trying so hard not to laugh, but he didn't think it was funny.
Yeah. We don't always make friends everywhere we go.
No.
No, I agree with you 100% on that, though. I think, yeah, I'd agreed, 5 years ago, I would have thought television was going to be dead in 5 or 10 years. And I don't know, every time I look at our numbers, I look at subscribers, they're growing. And, for something dying, it's sure growing a lot.
But then you take a look at, like, print medium is done.
Mm.
Print medium is done. Like,
Yeah.
actually printing something,
Yeah.
everything is moved online there. And I don't know why it works and why the internet doesn't work for things like TV shows and that. I don't understand how many different TV channels have came up on the internet,
Mhm.
and none of them.
None of them have worked.
No.
Yeah,
I don't.
I don't know. People don't. I don't know if it's just people don't want to sit in their office or sit in front of their computer after doing it all day, and then, that becomes their recreation as well.
Yeah. Well, when things like Netflix took off, and I thought, well, there's the beginning of the end. And to a certain amount, Netflix and Amazon Prime and Crave and all that have made life very difficult for channels, like broadcasters and that. You see where you got partnerships now where you can watch Global on Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
You can watch the local news or whatever on stream there. So you're seeing those partnerships happen. But I think those tell us more than anything that TV's not going away.
Well, it makes you have a television in your house. And
Yeah.
I think that's part of it. Whether that TV is hooked up to cable or satellite or, just the internet is one thing or the other, but at least we've got a television as the main feature still in the home. Like, people still gather in their living room around the TV.
Yep. It's the focus of every living room.
Yeah. Like, people don't gather around their computer.
No.
And I think that's the one thing that's really going to save us. And,
No.
like you say, we've seen the numbers here in the last month or so for our shows and networks. And, if anything, like, you'd think of this as a burgeoning industry right now that's just up and coming.
Very true. Very true. And I mean, and there's more people on the internet than ever right now. And yet the numbers, the actual Nielsen numbers, which it's awesome to be able to have, a vetted set of numbers to work with. But it shows that it's way up. It's way up even in this crazy time,
Yeah. And I think in some ways television's a bit of a break from these crazy times. Like, if you click onto Facebook or anywhere like that, it's nothing but vitriol about, the gun grab and COVID and everything else. And sometimes, and that was fine for the first 2 or 3 weeks, but I think a lot of people are just looking for an escape right now. And, watching you out on the drop line, you and Sandy doing what you love to do is kind of the ultimate escape.
Yeah. Well, and that's part of it. I mean, you sell the adventure traveling hunting package idea, and we just sell the back to the off the grid, back to the earth idea. We stuff that we take for granted.
Yeah.
That's our everyday stuff. People are just fascinated
but for you take it for granted. But for the average person,
no.
That's as exotic as what we're doing, right? And,
Yep.
But it's such a nice break, I think, mentally. And the longer this pandemic stays around, the longer our movement is restricted, I think it's going to become more important than ever that people have that outlet.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree with you. I think you probably, it's really weird, but I've been hearing rumblings that you're going to see more TV channel productions this year than we've seen in a long time. Most of what TV channels have done has been reality stuff, but I'm hearing that they're looking at, if the virus ever ends, that they're going to actually get back into some of that stuff.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
And you look at a lot of the programming that's becoming really popular, and I was just reading an article the other day, and it's just kind of that escape programming right now. Like, people don't really want anything too serious, and at the end of the day, that's what we do. Like, I mean, God knows we have a lot of fun out there, and we've had a lot of fun for 21 years doing what everyone, what we consider work.
Yep.
But it's still been a ton of fun, and I think that comes through, and people just want to see other people having fun right now, because sadly a lot of people aren't.
They want to relate to somebody.
Yeah.
They want to relate, and it's probably, got a lot to do with it. They're so tired of, if you were to take everything that had to do with the virus, whether it was politically or whatever, off of the daily news and that, they wouldn't fill 3 minutes.
Yeah.
There's just
And I'd be so happy if they did that right now.
I don't care how many people caught it. I
Yeah.
don't care. I
Yeah.
don't.
And not to be callous, but I totally get what you're saying.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
And but what I'm saying is that they want to see how other people are making it through, what they're doing. How's the the survival rate, so to speak, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
And that was kind of our idea for getting the Zoomcast up and going now. It's just, there is life out there. People are doing stuff. And I love hearing people's thoughts on, how they're making it through this, what they're doing. And some of the ideas are really creative.
They are.
Yeah.
We have a lot of fun. I always pretend that I'm walking a line, between the grave and death kind of thing with my antics around my wife of 41 years. And so you have a lot of fun posting stuff up. I cleaned out her pantry the other day, and then she couldn't find nothing in it. And honest to God, I found stuff in there that had best before dates that weren't even the 2000s yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I didn't even know they made best before dates back then. Honest to God.
But it was dry goods, so who cares, right? What could go wrong?
You know what I'm saying? So you post that up, and people just so identify with that. I think you're right. I think a lot of people want to see happy. They want to see some lightness in the world, and I think they're prepared to see it. They're tired of the way everything else is, right?
Yeah. So one last question for you before we go.
What's that?
How much longer do you see yourself doing this?
Hunt, fish, trap for a living. What am I going to retire to?
Exact answer I was expecting. People always ask us that. And I mean, like everybody has an end date to their work career. Like everyone you talk to. I don't.
I don't either. No, I'm 60. And
holy man, you're an old guy.
Yeah, you're 60 as well. There's a couple of weeks or month or something between us as far as our birthdays, but I can remember it was, and we thought we were so cutting edge, but you go to a sportsman show and you'd be walking during the halls, there'd be somebody there from an investors group or life insurance or whatever, and they, are you worried about your retirement? You turn to them and say, I hunt, fish, and trap for a living. What am I going to retire to? Kind of the sales pitch died at that point. And it's always been, one of the happiest parts of my life is that I enjoy my life.
Yeah.
And that old saying about if you enjoy what you do for a living, you never spend a day at work. Well, that's true.
Yeah. And I think both of us have just followed our dreams. I mean, it's not like either one of us was handed a television career or handed a bunch of money that we could do this, for fun. Like we made it a business, but we've made it a business we love to do. And I think the fact, I've been in the television business well over 30 years now. Started with a fishing show way back when, and I still love doing it. And I never think of the day when I'm going to stop doing this.
No, I don't either. I mean, there's things that, I've followed the plan more or less. I expected I'd have more money and less around my waist, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. But I mean, everything can come true. I want to thank you. You're the inaugural guest on our Outdoor Quest TV Zoomcast here, and give a quick plug for what you guys are doing, your television show, your podcast. Where can people find them?
Well, the easiest place is just to go to trappinginc.com, and everything is there. We do have some companies that we work with that we do promo codes with. We're getting into more and more of that. You can reach our podcast from there. You can reach Amazon Prime if you're in the US. You can reach our YouTube stuff, and we've just started a new subscription service called trappinginc.locals.com, and the minimum that we could sign up for was $3 a month, but you get all the new videos and everything. That's where everything's going now. We'll just keep continuing putting stuff out onto YouTube just to keep our YouTube channel active, but everything's going to be where I know who's watching. When you have a subscription service, you never ever have a hater. They won't spend a penny. They won't spend a penny from mom's basement to hate on you, and so nobody bothers with any of the hate, and it's pretty exciting. And who knows where that's going to go? That's the next thing. Is we've created this community, and maybe one day we'll have our own rendezvous, or who knows what we'll do. But it's exciting, and I'm just hope I don't run out of road before I run out of ideas.
I can see it in your face and your eyes. I mean, you love what you're doing, and you're thinking about the future. And I think both of us, really enjoy our followers. It's kind of funny, you know, we talk about Facebook friends, and it's a pretty
Yeah.
generic term, but I don't know. We have a lot of Facebook friends that I've never met.
Oh, yeah.
Quick story before we go. Vanessa and I missed a flight to New Zealand a few years ago because of bad weather in Vancouver, and just posted up, oh man, we missed our flight. Within probably 10 minutes, I must have had 20 private messages on Facebook. Do you guys need anything? If you need a place to stay, all from people I'd never met in my life.
Yeah.
And that was
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Yeah, that is cool. That is cool. And you know what? That to me, that is the biggest burden of all this, is that you are responsible for that, and you're responsible to make sure those people still think that of you the next day.
Yeah.
You know, that they still think that they would call you up and say, come come stay with us, or let us help, or whatever. You know, that's a big responsibility.
It is.
And that's where it's so easy just to be you, and then you don't have any apologies to make, right?
Well, no, and I'm literally humbled by that stuff to this day. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, for somebody to do that, it means a lot. But well, I'm gonna let you go now. I think you've got part of a honey-do list to look after. I understand.
Yeah, yeah. Because we're not doing anything this year. She decided she wanted to paint. Good Lord.
Well, thanks a lot, and I'm sure we'll be talking soon.
All right. Appreciate it. It's been a blast.